My name is Brian Smith. I'm alcoholic. Let me set the record straight. I'm not a big shot in AA. I also want to apologize for my attire. I don't normally speak from a podium wearing a flannel and some Carhartt pants. I like to get dressed up. I normally put a bow tie on, maybe some like suspenders. I got some really nice leather suspenders that I like to wear. But like Megan said, I was down the line on the roster for speaker choices. Oh man, I didn't know it was 6. But she texted me at work, and I've been taught that if you're able to do something for Alcoholics Anonymous, and when somebody asks you, you show up. And I was able to say yes, and I'm grateful to be up here. I really am. It is really a privilege to be able to do anything for Alcoholics Anonymous. This program has absolutely saved my life. This is my home group, and I love it here. I like pretty much everybody here. I'm just kidding. I don't know half of you. No, I do love this home group. It has been an absolute integral part of my sobriety, and I love being able to show up here on Mondays and Thursdays and be a part and participate in service here. And coming here, I came here maybe 2 or 3 years into sobriety, and coming here and being introduced to a 3 legacy group of Alcoholics Anonymous was something that changed my sobriety just so much. I didn't know how much actually went into Alcoholics Anonymous until I showed up here, and these people lovingly sucked me into service, and I'm grateful for that. But I do have a sobriety date. It's March the 27th of 2015. I've got a sponsor. He has a sponsor. I'm privileged enough to sponsor some guys in this program. Like I said, this is my home group. If you haven't been here before, we also meet on Mondays at 7. It's a good meeting. It's a good group of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm grateful to be a part of it. I also participate in some other areas of service outside of just coming to my home group and stuff like that. We're starting back going to the jail this month. We're going to be zooming into the jail, which I'm looking forward to being able to do that. I go down to a local treatment center a couple times a month, and there was some other stuff that just hasn't got back up off the ground yet since COVID started and stuff like that. But I tell you all that not to toot my own horn about all this stuff that I do in AA, because half the time that I go to these places I don't want to go. But I was taught early on in sobriety that being of service and trying to carry the message to the next suffering alcoholic is what is going to bring my life meaning and is what's going to keep me sober. If I'm not doing that kind of stuff, by my own, experience, I've been the dude who went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and, I used to hear the term meeting makers make it. It's not my experience at all. I don't get to just show up to meetings a few nights a week and not do anything else and maintain a sober way of living. I've got to be doing some other stuff. And I've had good sponsors that taught me that and showed me how to live, how to make this way of life, full, like make this full in my life, if that makes any sense. I don't know. But yeah, that's why I tell you guys about that kind of stuff. Not because I'm some really virtuous dude or anything like that, but because a sponsor early on in my sobriety told me, like, hey, go do that. If they ask you to go to that colony and speak, go do that. If they ask you to come over here and chair a discussion meeting, go do that. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to, fill some of those service positions, and they've added so much to my life. Just so much good to my life has been added by going and trying to carry the message to some of those places. So Megan wanted to hear how I got to Alcoholics Anonymous as well. I was actually born, the house I grew up in is like 5 minutes down the road from here. And my mom and my dad were married when I was born. They both worked. I ended up having a younger sister. She's about 4 years younger than me. And everything was pretty normal in our little house for the most part. My father was an alcoholic. He's still an alcoholic. He's right over there. My Uncle Tim's right back there. I'm pedigree. That kind of stuff was going on in the house when I was growing up. I got to see the arguments, the fights, all that good stuff. But they did a really good job. If I think back on it, like keeping it away from us. We didn't get to see that much of it when we were really young. What I know is that I was a very manipulative, selfish kid growing up. And whatever I wanted to do, like I was going to do it, regardless of what I was told. For example, I really liked pancake syrup as a child. And I'm talking about like I would drink it out of the bottle. And my mom would catch me. I'd be in the refrigerator with the door open, just like slamming pancake syrup. And my hyperactive self would just get to going after that. And she didn't like it too much. And no, you can't do that. So I figured out what to do real fast, which was to take the syrup out of the refrigerator and go back to my room and close the door. And I could have it all to myself. It's just like a little alcoholic, like a little tiny alcoholic with a bottle of pancake syrup instead of a bottle of Jack Daniels. And so that was my mindset, like growing up. Like nobody taught me that. Nobody had to show me how to do that. Nobody had to show me how to lie or to manipulate or be selfish. I was just there. And if I wanted something, like I was going to go take it. And, I always, I hear this from speakers so many times when they talk, like all throughout growing up, my early years and stuff like that. I always felt different from other people. I always felt uncomfortable in my own skin. I spent the majority of my time in competition. A speaker was up here not too long ago who said this. He was in competition with everybody around him and they had no idea. And I could really relate to that because I always spent my time like judging my insides versus your outsides, and like I always lost. So I was always in constant competition with people, which actually makes it really hard to develop like real friendships with people. So I had like people that I grew up with that I was friends with, but we were like never really that good of friends because I could never have unconditional friendship for somebody who I thought was better than me, and like that's how all my friendships were. It was always like just a constant, I've got something to prove to these people, and I never felt like I measured up. Now, the only time that ever went away even a little bit was when I was on a baseball field. I love playing baseball. My dad was my coach growing up, and the only time I ever felt even a little bit comfortable in my own skin was when I was playing ball. And that was like my passion growing up was playing baseball. And that was like the center of my life. And now, what started to happen is my father's alcoholism started to take off a little bit. Him and my mom got divorced when I was like 8 or 9, something like that. We started spending weekends with him every other weekend, and things were fine. Things were normal. Not everything was going crazy. Around I was maybe 11, 12 years old, he met a woman who had a lot of money, and which somehow we figured out how to do that. I don't know, but they just took off, and they were traveling the country, doing all kinds of wild stuff. And he started doing stuff like not showing up to baseball tournaments and not showing up to birthday parties and not showing up to all these different things that he promised me he was going to show up to. And I developed a really large resentment at my father. I didn't like the man. Have you ever heard me talk? Okay. Give a talk, I should say. I feel kind of weird. He's like right over there. But yeah, I really didn't like him. And after a while, like I just kind of shut down that emotion around that whole situation. And I wouldn't talk to anybody. I wouldn't vent about how I felt or anything like that. I just did not. I didn't like it. And all it did, none of this stuff like made me alcoholic or anything like that. All it did was just add a little bit to that. I already felt different. I already felt uncomfortable, and this just added to it. Now I got another excuse like, well, y'all don't know what I got going on at home, blah, blah, blah. I see my friends, and their parents are both together, all this different stuff, whatever. So it was around that same time when all that stuff like began to happen. I got this really big resentment of my dad. I went over to a buddy of mine's house one night, and we got his older sister to buy us a 12-pack of Bud Light. And we went there, and, the plan was to split it, and that's what we commenced to doing, and it was disgusting, and I had to get a bag of Doritos, and every time I would take a sip of beer, I'd eat a Dorito because it was nasty. But something, internal just told me you got to keep drinking. And about the time I got that second one down, I got that feeling that we all talk about, that warm blanket, where every bit of anxiety and fear and just uncomfortability I had in my own skin, it all went away. It all evaporated. And I just felt like I could breathe for the first time in my life, and it was the most wonderful feeling I've ever felt ever. Like I remember it very vividly to this day. And I ended up calling a girl on the phone and talked to her for like an hour or so on the phone. And, I'm not the kind of guy that could do stuff like that. And it just fixed me. It made me into the person that I wanted to be. And not too long, and nothing bad happened. It was an awesome night. Great. Didn't throw up, didn't black out, didn't nothing. It was great. Not too long after that, maybe a few weeks later, I don't even know how long, but I got my first experience with marijuana. Same thing, me and a couple buddies of mine got a blunt, went back to his house, got really high, laughed a lot, and ate a lot of food. It was awesome. And same thing happened, all right? Like, I just felt great. It was awesome. And like, drugs are part of my story. I'm going to tell you all the truth because that's what I'm supposed to do from up here. I'm not going to sugarcoat what I went through because this is Alcoholics Anonymous. Like, I am alcoholic and I do know what that is. But I'm going to tell you all what happened to me in hopes that somebody might be able to identify with my life experience. So I don't remember the next time that I drank after that. I know it happened a couple of times where, me and some buddies of mine would get some beer on a weekend and stuff like that, but it didn't happen often. I was really busy with other things. School was going on. I was on a travel baseball team, so like that took up like my summers, and I was still like really passionate about those kinds of things. Drinking had not made itself, and I'm grateful that I was like that involved in sports like that because I really think that's part of why I didn't end up going really downhill till later on in life. If I didn't have that kind of center in my life, I would have bottomed out a lot earlier. But anyway, so the next time I remember drinking, I was 15, and we went to a friend of mine's house, and they had the cool parents, and they had a good bit of money too, and they had this liquor like closet. It wasn't a cabinet; it was a closet. And you walk in this thing, and on one side it's just racks of bottles of wine, and the other side is just any kind of liquor you can imagine. And they showed me how to make a mixed drink. Now, I'd had liquor before this, but it had only ever been straight, and it was gross. And with that stuff, I never drank more than a sip. It was just nasty. But they showed me how to mix Southern Comfort with orange juice. And they gave me, little 95-pound, tiny little kid, a half gallon of Southern Comfort and a gallon of orange juice. They showed me how to mix it up, and I made one, drank it, made another, drank it. And the next thing I know, like I'm sitting on the couch, I look at the VCR on the clock, and it says 11:28. And I woke up the next morning, and I was wearing different clothes, and I was at a different house, and like I didn't have any underwear on. Like I didn't know where I was or what happened. And I went downstairs, I went outside, and there's the house that I thought I fell asleep in the night before over there, and I was in their guest house, and they had placed me there, probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't know. But I walked down and he started talking to people trying to figure out what happened, and they told me what happened. And apparently after I blacked out and I said some really inappropriate things to the owner of the house's mom, my buddy's mom that we were staying with, threw up all over the really nice white shag carpet. My friends had to strip me down and give me a shower. They had to change my clothes. They put me up there, but they also told me how funny I was and how entertaining my antics were and all this stuff. And that's all I heard. I didn't really hear how embarrassing what I did was, because it was truly embarrassing. Some of the things that I said and did. What I heard was they thought I was funny. They enjoyed my company. I was never allowed over at that house ever again. But my friends enjoyed my company. So what I didn't know was that I was still drunk. This is like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. And I went with my buddy over to his parents' place where they were doing business, and we were going to work for the day. Well, I made it till about noon, and I started throwing up. My hangover kicked in. I didn't know any of this stuff could happen. This is the first time I really got drunk in my whole entire life like that. And I didn't know that you could black out like that. I didn't know that you could still be drunk the next day. And I didn't know that if you got so drunk the night before that you would have a really bad hangover and you just start throwing up for the rest of the day. I learned all that. And I had my mom come pick me up, and we're riding back home, and I had her pull over because I got to throw up out the side of the car. And she asked me what we did the night before, and, I told a little bit of the truth. We drank. Well, what'd you drink? And instinctively, I know, we drank beer. I didn't tell her we drank liquor. I don't know why. But that was the first time, I was lying about drinking, but what I drank, how I drank. And I just felt like crap the rest of the day. And I promised myself that day, I remember doing it, like, I'm never drinking like that again. And that would characterize, those actions that I took, the way that I acted, would characterize how I drank for the rest of my drinking career. There was not a time, there was only a very small handful of times where I would, only get a buzz and then go home. Most of the time, I'm blacking out and waking up in a place where I don't know where I'm at, I don't know what I did, and people have to tell me what I did the night before. That was my normal night of drinking. Was never like have a few beers and have a good time. And for a long time, that was never the plan either. The plan was to get as drunk as I possibly could get. But anyway, so I'm 15, 16 years old, got my license. I'm playing ball for the high school team. Things are still going pretty good. I'm not getting in a whole lot of trouble. But, I get my license, I start skipping school a whole lot, going to party with friends and stuff, and I start experiencing these little consequences. And, already, like, alcoholic tendencies are beginning to manifest themselves, right? So I'd miss all these days of school. This happened my junior and senior year, where I would miss all these days of school and get, like, this close to failing. And, my mom, my dad's, like, out there, like, going wild. I don't even know where he's at right now. But my mom sees me kind of going down the same path as him, and she's doing everything she can to keep me from becoming him. And so she's emailing my teachers. She's keeping in touch with the school. And my teachers will send her an email back every now and then where it's like, Brian hasn't been in school for 5 days. And so she does what she has to do. She takes my car, takes my phone, all this different stuff. I understand that I need to get my stuff together. I don't want to fail. I want to graduate high school. I'm not setting out to be this failure. I want to do good, right? So I show up to school the next day after getting all this trouble. And it might be right before school. It might be lunchtime. It might be before fourth period. Who knows? But one of my friends comes up to me and goes, hey, you want to go have some of this blunt? Or you want to go get drunk at so-and-so's house? And I'm just like, well, yeah, let's go. And I forget about everything that happened. I forget that, I'm in all this trouble. I forget that, I'm going to fail if I miss more days of school. I forget about all this stuff. And I just go. And, that happened, multiple times throughout my high school career. And, fortunately, I was able to barely scrape by and graduate high school. I went and got a job right after high school. I went to community college for like a month and then just stopped going. Because I'd rather go to work and party, And by this time, I'm drinking just about every weekend, sometimes a few nights of the week or whatever. I'm working at this restaurant. Food and beverage industry where everybody drinks like I drink just about. And so I'm like partying with all these people, and like I found this job at this little inn in Pinehurst, and like everybody drank like I drank. And I just felt like I'd come home. Like these are my people. And we'd all go to work at like, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd stay up till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Then we'd wake up at 2 and do it all over again. And it was awesome. And I had a great time. And then somebody introduced me in that kitchen. You could find anything under the sun. Somebody introduced me to some prescription painkillers, and I started consuming those on a regular basis. I got about 3 underage drinking tickets that year I was 18, and so I'm unsupervised probation, supervised probation, and then supervised probation again. And like I'm starting to experience some decent consequences, and it's not really deterring me at all. Nothing's really. I've got all these excuses for why I can continue doing what I'm doing. I'm a kid. I'm young. I'm just having a good time. This will all straighten itself out later on, whatever. But no real plan on how I'm going to change anything. I'm just telling myself things will be okay and failing all my urinalysis for the PO and stuff like that, which is funny because like they give you the time and date you're supposed to be there, so what is it? May the 13th, Mr. Smith, on June the 14th, we need you to be here at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I'm going to make you pee in this cup. And if it comes back with anything in it, I'm going to send you to jail for a couple of days, or I'm going to up your fines. Yes, sir, no problem. And I leave there with a firm, plan to like how I'm going to, stop smoking weed a couple of weeks out. I'm going to stop doing the pills a week before I got to go see him. I'm going to get all this stuff flushed out of my system. Everything's going to be good. And then I get to that first day when I'm supposed to stop smoking weed, right? And I'm like, maybe tomorrow. And then the next day, well, tomorrow, obviously. And then the next day, well, my buddy calls me and, well, I can't say no to that. And then, I like tomorrow myself all the way into the night before I got to go see this dude. And like, I don't want to go to jail. Like, I don't want to, I owe these people so much money. I don't want them to add more money on. Like, this is not because like, it's not because I'm saying like, screw the system. Like, I'm not doing this against anything. Like, this is the only thing that this is against is my own will, right? And I couldn't recognize that. I couldn't put two and two together, right? I lived in the delusion that I was making these decisions willingly, that I was willingly telling myself, well, I'll just stop tomorrow. And I thought that I was making the decision to continue. I didn't know that I'd already fallen into that place where I'm powerless over. I've already lost my power of choice, right? And so things get pretty bad after a while. I end up going to this treatment center mainly because my mom, and I'm 19 years old. I go to this treatment center, and after the first couple of days, I realized that this is just an overreaction. I'm not like these people. I was one of the youngest people there, and there's crackheads and heroin addicts and all kinds of stuff. People have been to prison in there and stuff like that. I'm not like these people. So I've learned real fast that I just need to stay away from the hard stuff. I can drink and smoke weed and I'll be fine, right? And I didn't talk to any of the counselors. I did a lot of therapy with the patients in there. And got out, moved in with some friends in Wilmington, and just commenced with that plan. Drink and smoke weed. It'll be good. I got fired from my first job a couple weeks after I had it. I was a lifeguard. I fell asleep on the lifeguard stand because I was drunk from the night before. And you can't guard lives while you're asleep. It's not possible. And the dude like timed me. My manager guy, he timed me, and I was asleep for like 5 minutes and 40 some odd seconds. And he got me down and he sent me home, and I was like, well, you want me to come back tomorrow? And he's like, no. You were asleep. And I was like, well, you could have woken me. I was so mad. I was so mad that this dude fired me. Somebody could have died, like, for real, though. And so I got another job, and I got fired from there because I was stealing beer. I'm not 21 yet. I was 19 or 20, I don't know. But, here I am, like, I'm not alcoholic. I got 3 underage drinking tickets. I get fired from jobs because of alcoholism. And, like, I'm living in this delusion that, like, I have no problem with this. People just won't leave me alone, and I was living there. I ended up getting kicked out of that house because my buddy who I was living with, him and his girlfriend, he worked at a gas station. And I got blackout drunk one night and walked up to this gas station and tried to steal 2 tall boys by putting them in my pants. And it was noticeable. Let's put it that way. And his manager saw me, and like, he got fired from that job because of me. And they ended up kicking me out the next day. I guess his manager thought he was in on it or something like that. I don't know. But I ended up moving in with another guy, and all we did was just get drunk all day. And that's all we did. He went to school. I actually got him. He got a DUI one night. He was. It might have been my fault. I don't know. He hit a left on a one-way street in downtown Wilmington, and I had just gotten off probation for that 3rd underage drinking ticket, and I was really drunk. And I looked at him. I told him, I was like, "Hey, listen, when you stop, I'm out." And when he stopped, I got out and I ran, and I ended up getting away, and he went to jail. So that's the kind of friend I was. Anyway, I ended up getting kicked out of his house a while later because all I did was sit on his couch and get drunk. I went back home, moved in with my mom. Same thing as before, just got back in with the same people doing the same stuff. Prescription pills came back into my life with a vengeance. And now I'm just, kind of getting fired from jobs every now and then. I'm having to keep 2 jobs all the time because I'd always get fired from one. I needed another. And just to keep some kind of money coming in. And, this time, at this point, like, I'm trying to stop. Every now and then things would get so bad that I would try and stop. I got to rein this in, man. I got to chill out. And I'd be able to stop for like 3 or 4 days until the pain got great enough. And then I would tell myself, well, just one night I'll go out. Just one night. And then that night would turn into 2, turn into 3, turn into a couple of months. And then I'd be back to that place where I was like, I got to stop. And things got really, really, really bad. I was getting fired from jobs all the time. The last job that I had, I knew they wanted to fire me, and the only reason that they wouldn't fire me is because my kitchen manager bought weed from me. But I was working behind this line in the kitchen, and I would drink all their box wine and all their cooking brandy, which is gross. It's nasty. E&J brandy is just not a good thing to sip on. But I could tell them, like, hey, I need more brandy over here, because I would make the au jus sauce. And they would bring me as much as I wanted, because this was a pretty good setup. Anyway, I ended up getting, really in this really bad place, and I ended up getting this DUI, and I was all strung out on some other stuff too. So, I got picked up from jail that next morning, and having those conversations that, what are we gonna do about this with my mom? My dad actually picked me up from jail, right? Yeah. $5 LITs at pure gold, man. All that money was gone. I don't remember going to jail. I remember waking up in the holding cell. But it was, it was one of those mornings where it's like full of guilt, shame, and remorse. Like, what are we going to do? Something needs to give. And decided to go back to treatment. And this time I was going because I wanted to go. Not really because I was being forced to go, but like I wanted to get my life together. I wanted things to be better. I was almost 22. I didn't have anything to my name. I was living with my mom. Like, I was getting kicked out of her house regularly for stealing all her stuff and my sister's stuff. Like, my life was just absolutely terrible. And I couldn't stop doing what I was doing. And there was, like I said, there's periods of time where I really wanted to, and I knew that I couldn't. So I went to this treatment center, and I did what they asked me to do. I participated in the classes. I was focused on getting better, right? I did not want the life that I had. And these people were trying to tell me how to get a new life. And, I did so much in that treatment. So I ended up being like given buddy list. I don't remember what exactly it was called. What I was supposed to do was show new people around the campus. And so they ended up naming me patient of the week at this treatment center. The last week I was there. That's funny, right? That's like being the cleanest homeless person. Like, you're still homeless, but you smell better than the rest of them. So but it showed, like, I was willing, like I was doing some stuff. Like, I wasn't just in there just messing around. Like, I was doing some things. And I got accepted to live in this Oxford house in Wilmington. And I got out. I remember being so excited when I left that treatment center, just so full of joy. Like, I'm about to start this new life. Things are going to be better. I just turned 22 in this place. My life's about to turn around, right? And I get out of there, and I come home, gather my things. And I remember getting home that night, and just that thought crossing my mind was like, one last party. Let's get one more in before we stop for the rest of our lives, right? And like, only insane people think that way. Like, I was just like, my life was just terrible, absolutely horrible. And my best thinking is the best I can come up with is, let's do that thing one more time that made my life that bad. Like, that's the best I can come up with. I don't feel bad. Like, I'm back healthy. I got some weight on again. Everything's good. And all I can come up with is like, let's do that again. And I remember waking up that next morning with guilt, shame, and remorse, just feeling absolutely horrible, but nobody knew about it. So we went up to Wilmington, go to this Oxford house. And we go inside, and they got a pee test waiting on me. Now, I got to tell the truth. And they told me that since, basically, I used under their household, because I was already accepted there, that I could not live there for at least 30 days. So here I come, out back the front door, back to my mom's car, and get in, and I'm like, let's go. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just get out of this driveway. Like, let's get out of here. And so she gets out, the story comes out, and like the look on that woman's face was that look of a mixture of like disgust and absolute heartbreak of the only person, when somebody who loves you that much looks at you and like, how did you do this again? Like again. How? And also like confusion, like, you were only out of there for like 24 hours, dude. How did you do this? And that was when I honestly like said, like, I don't know. That was the first time when I look back, I remember like, reading that part in the big book where it talks about, we've lost our power of choice. That no matter how bad we don't want to, like, no amount of willpower will keep us from getting drunk. And that was the first time when I started reading that book with a sponsor, I looked back on that incident, and that was the first time like I really believed that like I was doing like I really against my entire will, and could not stop myself, So I was very confused. I was very ashamed, and I didn't, I ended up getting accepted into another halfway house and moved into there. The part of the rules were like if you didn't have a job, you go to 2 meetings a day. If you get a job, one meeting a day. And so I was doing that. I went to 2 meetings a day for a while, got a job, started going to 1 meeting a day, got a sponsor, worked up to the third step, said the third step prayer with my sponsor, went home, opened a notebook, wrote down one resentment on the notebook, closed that notebook, didn't go back into it. Got a girlfriend instead. Stopped calling the sponsor, kept going to meetings. I went to meetings every day, sometimes twice a day. I only hung out with sober people. I lived in a sober environment. I didn't do anything but interact with sober people except when I was at work. There was people there who weren't in the program, obviously. But like all I did was hang out with sober people, and like I was good. Like my life was it was organized, right? Like I paid my bills, I had a place to live, I had a car, I had a relationship back with my family. Everything was great. I loved it. Wilmington's awesome. I had a beach to go to whenever I wanted to. There's a lot of women out there. Like I was in paradise. I was only, 22, 23 years old. It was amazing. And one day I walked into work, and one of the guys that I worked with, I knew that he wasn't in the program. And the thought came into my head, like, let's go smoke some weed with him tonight. And that was it. Like, I did. And the next night I was blackout drunk. And 2 weeks later I moved out of that halfway house and moved in with another girl downtown Wilmington. Started going to the bars like religiously, and like my life it just took off like real fast. I had a good job. I was making decent money, and all of it was going to the bar. I had a bar that I would go to in downtown Wilmington where they knew who I was, and I'd walk in, they'd break out a shot of Jameson and a Bud Light as soon as I walked in, and it was for me. Like I thought that was like I found my new home. Like these are my people again. Like I loved that. Like it made me feel so good when these bartenders knew my name and like would just give me my stuff as soon as I walked in, right? That didn't last for long though. Like before I know it, like I'm blacking out every time I go to the bar. And I don't know why, because like now, I'm 22, 23 years old. Like the way I drink is not conducive to a bar scene because you get in a lot of fights with people and bouncers don't like you. Because like I'm belligerent. Like I'm not mean or an angry person, but I am obnoxious. And I do talk a lot of junk. So there was multiple mornings I'd wake up with like blood on me and you didn't know where I was and my face hurt and my knuckles were they were fine. So I didn't hit anybody, but I got hit. So I wasn't trying not to drink like that, actively trying not to drink like that, and I couldn't make it happen. I would bring $20, $30 with me down to the bar and my ID, and that was it. I'd leave everything else in my house, and I'd blow through that money real quick, and then I'd go back to my house, get more money, and then come back down to the bar. Blow through that money, go back to my house, go back down to the bar, and I'm blacked out. Don't know what happened. Just wake up the next day. And that happened over and over and over again, and I'm starting to go on these binges. I'm staying out 3, 4, 5 nights at a time. And that happened so often to where I'm not paying my bills. And one day I come back to my home that I was living at in downtown with this girl. We weren't together. We just, we're roommates. And I showed up after being gone for like 4 days. And I walk in and we had this little entry room and then the living room. And there was my dresser and my bed and all my clothes and a bunch of trash bags. And I walked into what was my bedroom to see somebody else's bed, dresser, all their belongings in what was my bedroom. And I was livid. Like, she moved out all my stuff. But, I mean, like, I hadn't paid. The power had gotten cut off several times because I didn't pay the bill. Like, she was having to pay the whole rent. Like, I don't know how I got away with it for that long. But that, led to me moving in with this other guy who moved in with him, started getting in some we were doing a lot of heroin. I'm not gonna, like I said. Anyway, things got really bad really fast. I stayed with him for a couple of months. He went home for Christmas break and never came back. I got a call from his mom, and they were like, Tanner's not coming home. He's going to treatment down in Texas. You got to find a new place to live. It's like, okay. So I moved in with these other people. That lasted for a couple of months before they found a whole bunch of contraband in my room that you would not want to find in a room of somebody you're living with. A whole lot of paraphernalia. And so they kicked me out. I moved in with this one girl who let me stay there under the condition that I would not get high in her house. And so, of course, I said, yeah, of course I wouldn't do that. And she caught me after like 2 days. So I scrapped my car. I had a scrapyard come pick up my car because I crashed it one night when I was drunk and couldn't afford to fix it. It was fixable. It still ran. It just needed a new couple of tie rods put in one of the front tires. But I couldn't afford to fix it. Had a scrapyard come pick it up, give me $400. So I was riding a bike around Wilmington in the wintertime. It was terrible. Waking up to go to work, or waking up to go see, the drug dealer before I would go to work. Going to the bars with my friends in the evening, and it was just, and when I say that I woke up every day for 6 months straight, not wanting to do what I was doing, I woke up for 6 months straight doing things that I did not want to do every day. Living a life that I was absolutely hated living. Couldn't stop doing what I was doing. And I think I came to a conclusion pretty quickly that this is what my life was going to be like from now on. That I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to stop, and I'm not going to be able to stop. And I showed up to work one morning. It was a Tuesday morning, and I hadn't slept at all the night before. It was cold, and I had to ride my bike into work, and I'm just, miserable. And I hated myself, and I didn't want to be around people anymore, and I didn't know what to do. And the last thing I wanted to do was call for help, but something happened, and I went and I called my mom and told her what was going on. I'm living in Wilmington. She's living in Moore County. She thinks everything's okay. And I told her what's going on, and I was like, I got to get out of here. And she called my dad, who was sober at the time, and he ended up calling a recovery or treatment center down in Rockingham. And that was a Tuesday. I went upstairs to my work and talked to my HR lady. And with only the audacity that an alcoholic can have, I told her I needed a 2-day notice. Please hold my job. I'm going to treatment. They did too. They were going to hold it for me. What happened was I got picked up on that Thursday, went to detox Friday. Monday I was in that treatment center. And that treatment center was different than anywhere I'd ever been. And what it was an AA boot camp. We just talked about Alcoholics Anonymous. That's it. We had speakers come in 2 nights out of the week. 2 or 3 nights we went to speaker meetings, and the guys who ran the place were all recovered, either drug addicts or alcoholics. So I was just inundated with identification for 28 straight days, just people just throwing their stories at me. And we're talking about the big book, and we're talking about having a relationship with God. And we're talking about, I remember that guy, one of the counselors there, told me one day, because I was having a lot of trouble with the second and third step, and he told me one day, he's like, the only way you're going to get out of here and have a sober and useful life is if you have a relationship with God. He said, I'll show you in the book where it says that. And he showed me. It was the last sentence of the last page of More About Alcoholism. And, that terrified me, because I didn't have a relationship with God. I had worked really hard to be an atheist for a long time in my life. I'm talking about, I studied it. I watched documentaries and stuff on how God wasn't real. And when he told me that, I was terrified, because I had so much prejudice built up around this idea of having a relationship with a power greater than yourself. And turns out all I needed was just some willingness to take some action. I didn't need anything else. I didn't need to believe in a certain kind of God. I didn't need to, sit on mountaintops and meditate. I didn't need to go to church every day it was open. I didn't need to do any of that stuff. I just needed to be willing to take action. And that's what they told me in there. And that's what, my sponsor when I got out told me. Was like, hey man, like I remember sitting down with this man and he had me write down on two separate sheets of paper what I've always heard God was and what God is to me now. And I did that, and I brought it back to him, and he balled up the one piece that said what I always heard God was. He balled that up through it, and then he passed the other one back over to me. He didn't even read it. He's like, "That's your conception of God. Go pray." And like that's what I did, right? And I didn't have a feeling of a God consciousness for probably the first year of my sobriety. What I did though was I had a really good sponsor who told me to do stuff like show up to meetings early and shake hands and make coffee, get a home group, become a part of this thing. And I did all those things. And I would show up to meetings early all the time, man. I was living in this recovery home and right over there. And there's a bunch of guys that were just, trying to get sober. And, we would all go to the meetings together and stuff like that. And I would show up to these meetings early and I'd make some coffee and I'd shake people's hands. And I was just doing whatever this man asked me to do. And I was the kind of person, I called my sponsor like 4 or 5, 6 times a day when I first got sober. Every time I had even the slightest thought about getting drunk, I'm calling this man and talking to him about it. Because I was terrified. I had tried to get sober before. I had tried this deal. And I was so terrified that it wasn't going to work. I was so scared that one day, they had me move back to my hometown where I know everybody. And I was so scared that I was going to run into somebody and that I was going to do what I always did. And I was just going to go off with them. And what happened was I was about 30 days out of that treatment center. I was living in the halfway house. And I ran into a girl that I used to party with. Over at the gas station over there. I'd just gotten off of work. It's probably 10 o'clock at night, and I'm riding my bike home because I don't have a license or a car. And, she sees me. I see her. We talk for a second. She asked me if I want to go out to the bar with her and her friends. We're going down to Broad Street. And before I even know what I'm doing, I said no, and I'm leaving. And it wasn't until, I walked out of that door and was riding my bike home that I realized what just happened, that I said no to companionship with a female and alcohol, which is 2 things that I've never really said no to before ever. And I was blown away. I really was. I was right there, God doing for me what I can't do for myself. And I can only attribute it to the stuff that I was doing in these rooms. Because I'd never been able to do that before. I tried to not get drunk like that. I tried to say no. I tried to, keep my stuff together. And I'd never been able to do it. And here we are, about 60, 70 days sober. And all I'm doing is praying to air. That's what it felt like when I said prayers. It just felt like I was talking to the air in front of me. I didn't have this conception of God that I could feel. I didn't have any of that. But I was going to meetings and I was talking to my sponsor and we were reading the big book and, I was saying these prayers even though it didn't feel like they meant anything. I was shaking people's hands and I was doing all these different things and I was able to, get past that thing that I was so terrified that was going to happen to me, right? And so let me fast forward a little bit. I've been sober for a little while now, and some really wonderful things have happened in my life. I've been married since I got sober. I've got 2 kids now. I bought a house, and I'm the sole provider for my little household. I did not think that was possible for somebody like me. A bank told me I could have $90 grand. So and I pay those bills on time. My wife does. I give her the money to pay it on time. She gets to stay home with those kids. Man, I never thought, I remember being terrified of that when we had the kids the first time, or the first kid. I thought she was going to have to go back to work. There's no way that I can do that. There's no way I can do this by myself, right? And I did what y'all always told me to do, don't try and work anything out. Don't try and make things happen the way you think they ought to be. Because that's what I've always done. And anybody in Alcoholics Anonymous who I've respected has never told me to try and make things the way I think they ought to be. They told me to, participate in the spiritual side of life. Be present with in your home group and try and carry this message to other alcoholics and just everything else will work out. And that's what happened, right? Like, she had that kid. Are we going to go back to work? We don't know yet. We'll see how it goes. She just never went back to work. She hasn't been back in over 2 years. So and I'm so grateful for that. I like it like that. And she likes it like that. This wasn't, and it's taught me how to be a good employee. It's taught me how to be a good husband. It's taught me how to be a good father. It's taught me how to be, a responsible human being. And that's all a direct result of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I don't get to be this person that I am today without you guys, without this program, without, trying to make this a way of life. I don't get to have this. This is completely and 100% a gift for somebody like me. I don't take credit for any of the good stuff that's happened in my life today, because I know for a fact that those kids, my wife, my home, my job, I will throw all that away in an instant. I will hand that back to wherever for another drink if I'm trying to do this on my own. If I wake up I was talking to, we were reading before the meeting, it talks about not having a choice. If I wake up in the morning and I don't take that time to say those prayers and get in touch with a power greater than myself, I might as well just be flipping a coin. Well, maybe I'll make it today. Who knows? I need that power in my life. And I get that through, being involved with my sponsor, being involved with the home group, doing those those services that I get to do. And I'm just so grateful that there were some men and women in Alcoholics Anonymous who were here when I got here, who spent their time with me, who showed me how to do that kind of stuff, and who allowed me, to have this wonderful way of life. Because without that, I don't know where I'd be right now. But I've got an absolutely wonderful life. I'm free. I'm free today. That's the best way I can put it. That's what I tell those guys when I go down there and talk to them in the colony, right? I'm not afraid of leaving here tonight and passing by a gas station. I'm not afraid of running into somebody that I know. I'm not afraid of that. I don't have to be. It'd be pointless if I was afraid of it anyway, but I don't have to be afraid of that, and I know that today. I get to be free. As long as I just continue to take these actions one day at a time to the best of my ability, that power that I have a relationship with today is gonna keep me and protect me. And I know that. Thanks for letting me share, y'all.